He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minute!
Hello, and welcome to another week of Bat Minute Forever, the podcast where we try to tame the wild animal that is Joel Schumacher's Batman Forever, 1 minute at a time. I am one of the hosts, Niall McGowan.
And here to blow this movie wide open is your other host, John Parker, me.
Hey, woo!
Hello.
Back in for like, it's an exciting week. It's like action-packed week, this particular week. But yeah, this week we're also joined by guests, as we're usually joined by guests. That is our want. We have the minister of the Movies by Minutes, is Father David Mowry.
Hello, boys. I'm back.
Hey.
This is an Independence Day minute, I should clarify there.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wait. I got to change my notes. Oh, no. All right. I'll throw out all these alien jokes. All right. Get my Jim Carrey jokes. All right.
I'm sure you can wing it. It'll be perfectly fine.
It's like, hey, you guys like Bill Pullman? Like, he's okay, I guess.
It doesn't.
And we also have, joining him is the champion of Rocky Minutes. It is Doug Greenberg.
Well, that is very generous to call me a champion, but thank you for having me. And John, you said action-packed, but you forgot comedy-packed. This is just packed with comedy this week.
This is, once again, another very shticky week. Like, this is...
I've always been torn on this. I mean, we'll get to it eventually, but I really enjoy these minutes in isolation. Like, watching them like this, I'm like, oh, this is fun. But when I watch them in the movie, I don't. Does that make sense?
It gets tedious when you're watching it, when every scene he's in.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
A little bit goes a long way. When you take it in the bite-sized YouTube clip doses... Oh, okay, all right. I get why Jim Carrey is a funny guy. I get why you would want to have him in your movie. When it's the entire movie where he is at 10 or higher throughout the entire thing, it gets a little wearing.
Yeah, I think 10 is his minimum.
Yeah. He's never anything less.
But this minute itself that we're talking about here is minute 94.
94.
There you go.
94.
It's like, who's going to say it? But minute 94 begins with some pumpkins plummeting and ends a minute later with a little bit of a squat. Well, it's not even describe what's going on in this minute, really. It's pretty much what they paid for when they hired Jim Carrey. Like, because even in the scripts and stuff, it's very much like the Riddler goes in, he says like one or two lines, and he blows up the Batcave. That's all they've got written down. And they were clearly like, well, Jim, just go and do what you want. Just the set's yours. Just go and whatever you want to do. Just as long as you make sure to throw a couple of these little toys around.
I wonder how much of this was, when I was watching it, how much was Jim Carrey and how much was scripted.
It's all him.
Yeah,
it's literally
it really
all him.
is. It's a bit like, I think they took the approach that people used to take with Eddie Murphy. Like, I don't know, just put him in the scene, it'll be fine.
Yeah. The thing is, though, because it's like... The things he's saying aren't funny, though. He's saying them in like a wild comic way, but they're just like, you're just saying stuff. You're not cracking wise. Like there's no wit to this.
Yeah, they're not puns or something.
Yeah.
Or riddles.
Because
he's the Riddler.
I mean, oh my God, it's over the top for this. Like I had enough of it by the time the movie was over.
Well, what do you think about Jim's movies in general then? Like, are you a fan? Do you find him too much all the time? Because obviously he was so big in the 90s, but I don't think a lot of them, the films he's done have aged very well.
No, I used to love him in the 90s. Dumb and Dumber, like Me, Myself, and Irene, those movies, like I could watch over and over again.
Liar, Ace Ventura.
Yeah.
Except
I mean,
like those movies are legitimately funny. They've got good writing and they've got jokes that also supplement Jim Carrey just improving and playing with stuff in the scene itself.
Yeah.
Throughout this movie, several times I would think, who is writing this? People do not speak this way, even in a superhero movie. Because there are moments where they try to be really introspective, and then you just throw the doors wide open to let Jim Carrey prance about the Batcave and do whatever he pleases.
Well, when he acts like this pretty much the entire movie is when he played the Grinch.
Yeah.
And I hate that movie.
Oof.
And I got in this scene in particular, I got like heavy Grinch vibes.
I see that, yeah. Although I think I'm one of the only people who thinks the Grinch is fine. I haven't got any connection really to the original, though. I think that's part of the difference.
You're not a purist.
No.
It might just be all the skin tight green he's got going on there. It's just like,
That could have something to do with
if you
it.
squint, he kind of looks like the Grinch, I guess.
In The Grinch, I'm willing to let Jim Carrey do all that improving because he had to spend, 4 or 5 hours getting into that costume. So if he just wants to play around and sweat his brains out in that, fine, let him. He's only punishing himself.
Plus, The Grinch, it's a kid's movie, whereas this is a movie that appeals to kids. I've brought this up before. That's a different thing. Like Star Wars, people sometimes say, oh, that's a children's film. It's like, no, it's not. It appeals to children. Very, very different.
That's a distinction I can get behind because throughout this movie, I had a hard time figuring out, okay, who is this for? Because there are parts of it where I was made to remember those other movies with Tim Burton? Remember how dark and gothic they were? Weren't those really good movies? Yeah, look at this. Look at this big Gotham skyscape and these huge statues, just like in the Tim Burton movie. Like, oh, yeah, movie. Yeah, you're right. I did like those movies. And then you've got Tommy Lee Jones making all kinds of strangled noises as laughter.
That's all he does.
I'm like, yeah, I don't know who this movie is for now because I didn't want that, I don't think.
He's got like, and speaking of Tommy Lee Jones, the minute kind of opens proper, well, you do have the end of the kind of comedic pratfalls and the chase around the mansion here, where Bruce has managed to deck one of the goons in the chin with a table that he was running across and stuff. But then you get Tommy Lee Jones flipping his coin, doing the old Two-Face motif.
Well, first, let's just, I'm sure this has come up before, but I just wanted to say a word of appreciation for the makeup and costuming for Two-Face. Whatever else one may say about the performance, this costume and makeup is spectacular. And you get the best frontal shot in the movie here, where you get a real appreciation for all the work done on the left side of his face and the two-tone tie and the leopard print shirt and all the tiger stripes and all the other stuff that's going on in his suit. It's so dark and muddy in a lot of the other scenes he's in. This is the best shot you get of him, I think.
Yeah, it's like they did it just for us, for podcasters.
You can even see little things like I've never noticed before, like on his lapel, he does have a little silver badge of some sort. I can't make out what it is because it's on
look at that.
It's on like a tiger skin thing. But it's just lost in the noise of that whole side of the outfit. But they did put something there, so there was some thought going in. They're like, oh, you give him a little, and like he needs his bits of flair. I guess it's like it's not flary enough. This guy.
I always thought it was just like a star, that you stud a jacket with, like a punk would stud a leather jacket with. You can get conical ones, you can get spikes, you can get stars. It looks a bit like a star.
Like a little Sid Vicious vibe you got on?
Yeah. He's rocking a punk. That whole side is like a punk outfit.
Mm-hmm. But he's this whole thing he's doing though, of course, is I know you've got beef with this, John.
Yeah.
And I think for legitimate reasons too, because this is Two-Face begins this process of flipping the coin, getting a result he doesn't like, and then just flipping the coin again because
that defeats the whole point of Two-Face.
Yeah, this whole thing though is like he's supposed to be psychotic.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one who felt that way.
Yeah, because this is like, well, if his psychosis is that he has to obey the rules of the coin, well, it seems like he doesn't even really have it now. He's just like, I'll just flip it until whatever I want comes up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So why bother flipping it at all?
It's obvious he wants to do something. He is not of two minds when it comes to killing Bruce Wayne. He has this desire, but he's not giving himself permission to do it except when the coin comes up his way.
Yeah.
it reminds me of when I'm trying to decide, okay, well, do I want to go get an Italian beef sandwich or do I want to get deep dish pizza? And I can't decide. And so I flip the coin. And when it comes up on one, I realize, oh, I don't really want that one. I actually wanted the other one. I just needed some way to give myself permission to indulge in the deep dish pizza.
What would this scene have been like had Two-Face then he made that realization himself and he's like, wait a minute, I can make this decision myself. Like,
I'm free.
I'm cured.
And then he goes to get a deep dish pizza.
But the thing is, this is also a thing that pops up every so often in the comics, which is even more insulting. But yeah, quite notably in Batman 398 from August 1986, the storyline About Faces.
I get it.
There's a whole thing where Two-Face, he's attempting to steal the sarcophagus of like an Egyptian pharaoh who has a mask that rumor is will restore his natural face, and the nobility of the pharaoh will wash into him and make him back into like a noble person and whatnot. And it turns out, because this is in the 80s, like this is when Batman was like, it wasn't the silly campy area. It turns out that it's all a scheme by Batman, who's spread this rumor himself to see if he can coax Harvey Dent back into the dominant position in Two-Face's personality. But the thing is, there is a sequence then where Two-Face puts on the mask and he starts to feel himself change. And he's like, I don't know if I can go through with this. I have to go meditate with my coin. And he just sits flipping the coin, going, shall I wear it or not? And it keeps coming down on the good option, which he doesn't want to do. And he's like, oh, best 2 out of 3, best 3 out of 5, all this kind of thing. And then later on in the same issue, because he realizes it's all been a foil, and that he's been tricked by Batman and the woman he's working with, Cersei, the Two-Face is working with. Yeah. We mentioned she was the basis for Alicia in season 1. But so he goes out and confronts her and he actively says the line, "Did you think I can't just toss my coin until I get whatever result I want?" And that's like, that just defies the whole point of Two-Face then. If he can just go, yeah, I just have to take a little longer to decide stuff because I have to wait for the coin to say it's okay.
Well, maybe if it's less of a psychosis thing and more of a like OCD thing. You know, like the guy that has to flick the light switch on 20 times before he can leave the house. Maybe he just has to flip the coin until he gets his result before he does what he wants to do.
Yeah, that's probably the only way we can look at this and not just ridicule it. I like that.
Right, so he's a psychopath and obsessive compulsive.
But you'll get other much better stories, frankly, where they'll examine more the litigiousness of him sticking to the coin, like they had in No Man's Land in the 90s. There's a sequence where Two-Face abducts Jim Gordon and puts him on trial, and because Gordon knows how Harvey Dent works, he's like, I want Harvey Dent to represent me against the prosecution. And Two-Face is like, well, oh my God. And then he's like, well, I'll ask the coin, flips the coin, comes up good. So then Harvey Dent has to defend Jim Gordon against Two-Face. And there's a whole sequence where he's just arguing with himself. And
boy, I would love to see that.
Can you guys think of any instances where the coin saved somebody that he wanted to kill?
Oh, there is, like, in the comics, there used to be loads of little things, like if the coin came up good, he would actively do a good deed and stuff. Like he would save people from, rampaging cars or something like that. You know?
Wasn't there a storyline where Harvey Dent reformed and took up the mantle because Batman was, I don't know, in space or whatever, and he took on the responsibility of protecting Gotham?
Yeah. It's just there's all these kind of elements with Harvey Dent, because they have the one in the animated series as well. They have him. There's still Two-Face, and then there's this other character appears called the Judge, who's all judge, jury, and executioner, and that turns out to be a third personality of Harvey Dent that they didn't know they had already.
Oh my God. He was
goes on.
And then in Nolan's The Dark Knight, when you've got Two-Face at the near the inexplicably long third act of the movie, he flips the coin for the crime boss and it comes up good, so he doesn't kill him, but he flips it for the guy driving the car and it comes up bad, so he shoots that guy, and the crime boss dies in the car crash.
That's a good way around it, isn't it? It's like, well, technically, I didn't.
Nolan's
kill you.
Batman movies are full of that kind of thing. I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you either.
Exactly.
Peace.
That's the dumbest one to me for Batman. It's like, no, that is killing him, Batman.
What if Batman, like, he told Harvey Dent about that? Like, then I said to him, I don't have to kill you. And then when he's Two-Face, he's like, I think I know a way around this. It's like, hey.
It's plausible deniability.
I'm pretty sure that won't hold up in court, but there you go.
I just never got that scene because it seemed like, is he supposed to jump out of the car or something? Like, what? I think that I discussed it with somebody at some point, and they're like, because it looks as if he's taking off his seatbelt, like he's going to jump out of the car. And then you never see him jump out of the car, and they're like, no, he's putting his seatbelt on. I was like, oh, that's all discussion for the Dark Knight minute, guys, whenever they get to all that business.
I figured he was just like, preparing himself, but if he dies, he dies.
Yeah,
like,
if
he's not.
Dies. Oh, Doug's right here as well.
That wasn't intentional either.
Now you're speaking my language.
But that's what I thought, I'll kill this guy, and then fate will decide what happens to me.
Well, that's actually an interesting thing, though. About like the concept of fate and whatnot, though. Like, particularly now we have you here, Father Mowry, because obviously representing religion and the idea of a grand design in the universe and all this kind of stuff. What would your opinion be of like the flip of a coin? And it's just like, this is the hand of fate, literally going, whatever way this lands, that's the way the universe wills it to be. Would you follow that line of thinking? Or are you just like, no, that's nothing to do with anything?
No, I don't believe in fate as it's popularly understood. Fate implies some kind of will or purpose, and for there to be a will or purpose, there has to be a person, because persons have a will, just pure random objects don't, which is why I think the way they presented Harvey Two-Face at the beginning of this movie worked pretty well, because he talks about justice is actually just dumb, blind luck. Now, luck is a thing, because luck depends upon random chance. At the flip of a coin, it comes up either heads or scarred heads. But in life, there can be lucky things. I can be lucky when I'm driving down the street and miss hitting someone who happens to pull out in front of me from their driveway. That could be a lucky miss, but it's not necessarily fate. Just the same way it's not fate if I end up hitting that person who pulls out of their driveway suddenly. For the Christian tradition, we distinguish between luck and providence. So luck is just a series of random chances where there's no will or purpose behind them. The roll of a dice, the flip of a coin, whether I happen to be driving down the road when the tree crashes in front of me, or whether I happen to have left 5 minutes earlier and I missed that entirely. Providence in the Christian tradition looks at how God is able to see the entire picture. God has a perfect knowledge of everything that happens, and so is able to arrange events so that a meeting that appears to be by chance has actually come about through his purposes. But that happens through individual people. So the example that say St. Thomas Aquinas would use, if a king sends two messengers out on separate errands but knows that their paths will eventually cross, well, it's not a chance meeting for those two messengers to run into each other. The king knew, but they had no way of knowing at the beginning. So there's a providence to that meeting because it's set about because of the action of the king. So it is with God, that there is a purpose and a will behind things that operates within the, you guess you could call it secondary causes, the things that are inside the created universe. God has lots of ways of doing God. He doesn't need to operate on miracles and intervene directly. He's capable of being very subtle. Obviously, also as a Christian, I have a lot of problems with justice being meted out by the random flip of a coin. That's not justice. I disagree with the thesis that justice just comes down to pure blind luck.
Yeah.
I do as well.
Yeah.
With my background in law enforcement.
Oh, they issue a badge, a gun, and a coin when you join the force. Right?
Yes, of course. And I am judge, jury, and executioner. I get to carry out justice at the flip of a
That's
coin.
great. A police issued coin.
My standard issue coin.
I wonder though, like, so I don't know if you guys would have seen this though, but actually, in the following weeks after this, this batch of minutes, there is a major deleted scene that a lot of people would have seen the publicity stills for and behind the set bits of like Bruce Wayne with this giant bat, and it's part of a sequence where it could be read in a kind of weirdly religious fate kind of way, because basically what happens is when Two-Face later on in these minutes, when he shoots Bruce, causes him to fall down, get concussed, and when Bruce wakes up, he actually has amnesia and he has no idea that he's Batman. And this causes him then to go down into the Batcave and find the red leather book, which is mentioned, in other scenes and whatnot. And through a whole big, we've gone into the red leather book a couple of times, but basically then once he finds what's the contents of that book, he confronts the giant bat, which obviously scarred him as a child, but it's more of a vision this time, and it comes towards him, and it obviously got his wings outspread, and he puts his hands up in a very Christ-like manner to meet it, and they kind of eye each other down, and they do like a matrix spin around them, and at that point he decides like, oh, he's going to become Batman again for the good of the people. Like, he's not because he feels he has to be, but because he chooses to be, which, as he says at the end of the movie and stuff. But if that sequence had remained in the film, it would almost be indicating that, like, yes, it was fate that he got concussed so he could get over this issue with the Red Book and make peace with the bat that was in the cave and all that kind of stuff. And, the religious symbology of it all just makes it seem like, I wonder if there was an attempt at that throughout. But I can't really say.
Western storytelling remains haunted by the story of Jesus Christ. We cannot help ourselves as a Western society but try to draw in that kind of symbolism. And so if that scene had remained in the movie, there's something in that cruciform position that implies that Bruce is embracing the trauma. He is embracing that pain and that suffering as part of who he is. It's what makes him who he is, and he's accepting that mission. And just as Jesus would have to accept the cross, and that was the agony in the garden, was going through with the will of the Father to go to the cross and to embrace that pain and suffering on behalf of a humanity that had gone to the very limits of God-forsakenness. I also would have liked that because that scene that you're talking about, Niall, ties together so many dropped themes from this movie. Like when he's shutting down the Batcave, I was remembering thinking, where is this coming from? Why is Batman no more? I don't get it. And the red leather book seems really important, and it just kind of disappears from the movie after the talk with Chase, and it doesn't really come up again. And the way he's saying this line to Riddler at the end of the movie sounds like the kind of thing that would come up before, but it's here for the first time. So, the movie's already at the 2-hour mark, so I'm not asking for more Batman Forever. Even Forever must come to an end.
We have been asking for it. We've been saying, despite this movie being, hit and miss, it might actually improve it if it's longer, which is an insane thing to say.
Would it alter the whole feel of the movie if they put in a not cartoony kind of segment like that?
I think that's the debate we've been having, because I've been so pro the red leather book stuff, because I'm like, oh, it's amazing, it's so so much more serious and psychologically deep, I guess. And then I kind of assumed everyone would be on my side with that, but we've had guests on who are like, no, that would be like, that wouldn't fit in with the rest of the movie, though.
I've said that as well, because I think it's a better story, but does it fit this film? I don't know if it does. Would that go with Jim
not
Carrey?
A film where you cast Jim Carrey. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the problem, though, isn't it? Like, where if you have a theme of a movie, if you want to go in a certain direction, and you start playing jump rope with another sort of tone, wouldn't that it would confuse fans. I think it would anger fans.
Yeah, I don't know what the...
So you have to pick a tone and kind of stay with it.
I just
right?
wonder now if they decide this tone by literally flipping a coin themselves. And then they just dictated all of Batman and Robin. It's like, well, we choose that one route, so...
They made their decision the second they hired Jim Carrey.
Yeah, I think so. And you see it throughout this minute, really, because, when we cut to him now and he's throwing the little bombs, the little bat bombs, it makes, stupid, funny, but stupid sound effects. It's like you're watching Looney Tunes or something.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey is a living cartoon, so I think the sound effects are appropriate. For a Jim Carrey movie, but maybe not for a Batman movie.
Maybe not. It works in The Mask.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you do get, as the minutes go on, it becomes more and more like he is almost just becoming the Mask. It's like, is that what the box is doing? Is it turning him into a cartoon? Is that what the movie's been about this whole time?
Oh, that'd be great. And in the end, he's actually animated.
It's like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where he's got animated eyeballs popping out of his head and stuff.
Why not?
Hey, could have worked. Yeah, at this point, anything could have worked in this movie. But
because that was the last major project he did. Yeah, was The Mask.
Yeah, well,
before this movie,
I think he had this was like a real trifecta between 94 and 95. He had Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, and Batman Forever come out in the space of 2 years.
Oh, whoa.
Jim Carrey riding high.
Yeah.
So he was hot.
But yeah, that's within the Batcave here, though, you do get their money's worth, I guess. But it's this line of it's always dangerous reintroducing a tamed animal into the wild. They may have trouble adjusting to their new environments. And it's like, that's just... Is Jim Carrey at this point of his career just I'll just read a thing that I found in a magazine and just say it. And then... That's funny, right? And everyone on set was like,
No.
I guess so.
And maybe that's the difference between Robin Williams and Jim Carrey, where Robin Williams would just say something and it would be funny because it was random, but it was also very incisive to the moment. Jim Carrey is just random.
Yeah.
Without there being too much connection to what's going on at the moment, because it's a bat cave, it's a very artificial environment. It doesn't feel like a wild thing. I don't know.
It seems like in a scene like this where you're doing a sort of third person narrative while you're doing these actions, it's a very touchy, a skill where you either have it or you don't.
Oh, yeah.
And like you mentioned, Father David, Robin Williams would be a genius at this sort of thing. And Jim Carrey, I don't know, I think he falls a little short because it's not funny. It's a little tedious and kind of annoying.
I'm kind of torn because I like his physical overacting here, but I don't like his vocal overacting. I like the motions he's doing, where he humps the air as the bombs go off. I find that hilarious, but I just
John, be cool. There's a priest here.
it's funny, it makes
Nothing
him,
I haven't heard before.
Yeah, he comes across like a jerk, but he's supposed to. He's the Riddler. But I just want him to shut up.
I do have a soft spot for his motions in destructing the Batcave, but again, it comes back to the video for "Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me,"
which was that song.
I love that the song and the video. In particular, the video matches it so well. But they have a whole thing where because they're trying to tell the story of the movie throughout the video as well, and the little segment on the formation of the Riddler is you see Edward Nygma getting rejected, and it does that close in on him as he's kind of standing agog, about to say you were supposed to understand. But they'll keep cutting to bits of him as the Riddler later on. So they'll cut to him blowing up the Batcave, and then back to that one shot of him, agog, and then they'll cut to him with on his throne, and then cut back to that. So you're seeing where he starts and where he's going, and it kind of lends an ominous tone to the whole thing. And it's I really like that as a bit of video editing. So it's because of that, then I can kind of accept all this. It also is very trailerish as well.
Oh, yeah.
The whole, the pelvic thrust is very you could put that in the trailer, totally, with the two little bombs going off next to him. Oh, that's the thing you put in TV spots and everything. Yeah, it's perfect.
And then there's that little tune that plays. Is that like a baseball song? See, we don't get baseball here.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I've actually
it is.
I've actually done some research into the origin of I was like, I wonder what you actually call this song. I bet you it had like a really cool name this whole time, and I never knew what it was.
Well, they say charge at the end of it when they go ba-na-na-na-na-na. The crowd goes charge.
Oh, see, I've heard
so it's
the
like
tune, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently it is just called Charge.
Oh,
Oh, there you go.
Hey!
But it's one of those things though, because it is very American. I'll give you that. It seems to be synonymous with American sports. But I also kind of felt like this must have come from like, the cavalry or something like way back in the day. Turns out, it was invented in 1946 by a guy called Tommy Walker, who would actually then go on to be the first entertainment director at Disneyland. So there you go.
oh my God.
There's a little bit of trivia for you. But yeah, he went to the University of South Carolina, and he was the band leader for the football team. I think they were called the Trojan Warriors. And he just kind of saw that they needed a bit of a pep one day. And so he wrote a little 6-note thing. And it was... The thing he wrote was just... like the lead-in wasn't there at all. And
the big build-up where it's like duh, 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 duh. Yeah, okay.
Well, you clap to that part. Da, 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 and then it picks up pace.
Oh yeah, you get into it.
Ba-na-na-na-na-na. And then you...
Yeah, but people were originally encouraged to yell Trojan Warriors at the end, and then someone was like, Charge is better.
Trojan Warriors
Charge
is
is
too
better.
long.
Yeah.
And it gets all muddy. You get a big crowd yelling at Trojan.
You could go, I don't know, Trojans or something. I don't know.
Tro!
Warriors.
Not war. That would be pretty bad, actually. But then apparently, it just became popular amongst people who knew college ball, which apparently college football is a major thing in America. Like over here, the idea of being able to follow university league football matches is just like, why would you care? But I know from doing Point Break Minute, because like, in Point Break, Bodie just knows John in Utah. I was like, he played college ball. Like, you just know a guy because he was in a college football team and a university you didn't even go to? What the hell?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But then it was, so it went from everyone kind of knew it through college ball. Then apparently it was appropriated by the LA Dodgers in 1958. And then they, as part of their marketing campaign, released 20,000 little, little plastic trumpets that played the... And throughout the 1959 World Series, apparently everybody in America heard this music. So then in the 60s, it shows up on like the Flintstones during the Charge It sequences when when Wilma and Betty go out shopping because women be shopping,
Women be shopping.
And just like now it's just like it's become one of those things. It's like that must have existed for centuries, but no, it was quite a recent invention.
It invokes baseball far more than, say, football.
Yeah.
So, so it makes sense. I mean, it's interesting that it was invented for football and then baseball kind of just adopted it. And you could hear it in any ballpark.
Yeah, big baseball fan that I am, I do acknowledge that there's a lot of waiting in a baseball game. And so you need those little interstitial bits from the Wurlitzer organ to pep everyone up and to keep you emotionally invested in the game because you're sitting around waiting for the sides to change or you're waiting for the batter to come up and there's a lot of dead time to fill.
I get that because we've got, of course, here cricket, which is kind of a similar rule set, but it's considerably more dull. Because it doesn't have those bits. That's the difference. Everyone is just sitting around bored for 3 days. I think is that how long a game lasts now? 3 days?
I have no idea. Cricket. I used to have a girlfriend who was obsessed with cricket, but I just could not even feign interest.
No, it's boring. And then they have a break so they can all go have sandwiches.
Cucumber sandwiches, something even
how
more
civilized.
Yeah,
some people would say baseball feels like 3 days. I love baseball, but some people just say it's too slow and boring.
Yeah, I always associate it with that episode of The Simpsons where Homer gives up beer for 30 days, and then it's him at the baseball game, and you just hear this really monotonous announcer, and Homer's just like, I never realized how boring this game is. Because everyone around him's just sitting drinking the whole time. He's the only person there not doing it.
Yeah, it's a bit like when we all go to that music festival in the park now, Africa Oye. It's an African music festival. It's like, you kind of just go to hang out with your friends and have a few drinks. And the music's there, kind of on. There's bands coming. You're sort of paying attention. You know?
They always have a big thing in Facebook where they're like, "We're announcing the bands," and you're like, "You could just put a speaker and like a friggin' iPod on that stage. People don't care who the bands are."
Like, you have a good time, but yeah, you're there to hang out with people.
Yeah, but one thing I will say is like the choice of the bombs the Riddler has here. I kind of like they're a bit too toyetic, playful kind of things. Like, if you get, the production stills of them, they've literally got like painted on faces like a space hopper, like that kind of. I don't know if they call them space hoppers in America, but like, the bouncing ball you grab the two little things and bounce around on.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, because the rest of it is made out like a bat, which is kind of like, oh, that's appropriate, I guess, because it's like the Batman's doppelganger enemy. Like, Edward Nygma wanted to be Bruce Wayne, basically, using his own, like, symbolism, his own emblem against him by destroying the cave with, like, a cartoony version of bats. But one, Batman isn't there to see that. So
yeah, true.
It's a bit of a wasted effort.
And you know what an idiot I am?
For yourself.
I thought those were like chickens, and the question mark was not on its back, like a bat in flight. It was on its stomach.
Yeah.
And the chicken had like a split beak, and that confused me.
No, you're not alone. I thought that the only reason I knew it was bats was because I looked at the script.
Oh.
And Jim Carrey is so careful around like second 13 when he's twisting the head. It's obvious he got some direction that he had to end with the ears pointing up, because he twists and then twists it back the opposite direction to try and communicate its bat shape.
I see now.
But they also have sound effects that are kind of like a duck. So it's like it could be a duck bill, all this kind of stuff. It looks like it's a bat body with a duck's head. It's weird stuff. But
It's not the best design. I like the concept.
yeah, and that's the thing as well. Like, I'm no ballistics expert. I'm no
Really?
ballistics
What?
bottoms like Phoebe Bottoms, who was on earlier in the show. But I don't see these little explosions doing all that much damage to the Batcave. Like, well, some of them are very blatantly set up. Like, he throws the first one down, it kind of bounces off screen, and then you have one explosion of a computer, and then the computer, like 5 feet in front of it, also blows up because it was just rigged to blow up. And I was like, I don't think the explosion would reach that far. And when he throws it into the little room with all the bat suits, like, I would just be like, oh, that would just leave like a hole in the floor. I don't think that would. Maybe it would like splinter some glass on the cases, but I don't think it would do that much damage. Like, it seems like, yeah, you get a couple things would have fallen over, I guess, but it wouldn't be the end of the world.
They went cheap on the pyrotechnics a little bit.
Yeah.
That's the problem with practical effects. You have to go big in order to sell it on a movie screen, because I'm looking at the beginning about second 34, and it just shows the little squib exploding, and it's this baby little cloud that comes out and some sparks, and that's about it. And then you cut to the Riddler outside to get the big payoff explosion. If they want to do something inside the bat closet, I don't know what this is called exactly, you would need a much bigger explosion in there.
Yeah, that is. I hadn't thought about any of that. Yeah, and he blows up, as we're going to see. Like the Batmobile coming up, and surely that thing is built to last.
Yeah. I think this stuff has all been spoiled for me by that one episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where they're trying to blow up the car.
Oh yeah.
And they put a grenade in it, and the grenade just kind of goes like. And they're like, oh, I thought it would have been a much bigger explosion. And they're like shooting the gas tank, and just nothing's happening and stuff. They're like, oh, it's supposed to work. We'll say though as well, as he blows up the room with all the suits, that's the last we see of the Panther suit. This version of Batman's outfit, which debuted the bat nipples. They do not appear on the sonar suit that's coming up. I have to say, beyond the nipples, I always feel that the Panther suit is like the most underrated of the Batman outfits. So
I love it. I think it's great. I don't even mind the nipples.
Yeah, I've really made my peace with it. It's just like, I'm not a fan of the nipples, but everything else about it's like, it's a pretty cool Batman outfit. Like, he looks great in it. So,
and the way he was shot in it, he didn't have the same obvious fixed neck problem that Michael Keaton had to fight with in the first two Burton movies.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the design was better or they've just figured out a better way to shoot him in that costume, but he looked a lot more mobile.
It's a different design. Yeah, they've really worked on it. Like, because in Batman Returns, they've improved it from the first one, but he still had trouble moving. So they've kind of perfected it at this point. Like, right, we've got it down. He needs to be able to move his head.
Oh, I get it now.
We never thought of that.
Yeah. But yeah, Panther suit, I will remember you.
Oh, R.I.P. Panther suit.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Well, actually, there's a callback as well in the Goldsman draft because the Riddler comes out with something very familiar to us, Niall. Yeah, he says, "Gonna have a hot time in the old town tonight."
Well, that's right, yeah.
And then, who used to say that? Somebody always used to say that. And it's the Joker.
That's right. Not only the Joker. Remember, Selena Kyle also said it in the second movie as well. But I remember seeing that in the Goldsman draft because they say it has Riddler and then brackets Jack's favorite line.
Yep.
And then that's indicating like this was the Joker's catchphrase or something. It's like he said it once. He just did that one. Oh, there'll be a hot time.
I know you could pick any of the lines he came out with. The one about rubbing rhubarb, all kinds of stuff.
I'm in a mind to make some mookie, and any of those would have been better lines than that friggin' stuff Jim Carrey's coming out with. To be fair, but.
Yeah, and I like it. It'd be a callback. It'd be connecting the two sort of disparate elements, like the Tim Burton movies and then these movies. They feel quite different, so that would at least put a little through line in.
And what they should do is then keep it up throughout, and then in the next movie, Mr. Freeze says it's going to be a cold time on the hot town tonight.
Oh,
and there you go. You got a little flip.
That'd be amazing.
I'm not convinced he doesn't say that in Batman and Robin.
It was probably filmed.
Pretty sure that line is in there.
Yeah.
Actually, you might be right. That's the thing. Like, there's so much. Just like after a while,
there's just so much.
They just all wash it over. You're like, oh, he said something.
So, tune in next season, everybody, to find out.
Yeah. It's like after the lines,
Brave
like,
souls.
A freeze is coming. Even Arnie at this point is like, did I not say this already? Like, I feel like I've said this like 10 times throughout the movie. But yeah, that's all the notes I got for this minute in particular. Do any of you guys have any more notes on this particular minute?
We get just one payoff. We get Chase absolutely decking one of the thugs, which is the payoff to the punching bag scene in her office.
Yeah.
And that is the extent of her agency for the rest of the movie.
Yes.
Sadly, when it's gone to great lengths to show that she's this tough, strong character who can look after herself, and then they throw it in as a token, basically.
I think that's been a thing throughout like movies for like a long time. I think thankfully we've moved past that now. Yeah. Where it's like you can have a strong female character who actually does do stuff as well. It's not just there to be like, look what we've done. She's damsel in distress. But at this point, I always argue that this even exists in Raiders of the Lost Ark because like they build up Marion. It's like, oh yeah, she can really handle herself and stuff. And then, but 3/4 of the way through the movie, it's like, yeah, she's captured by the Nazis. And then she just spends the time in various states of been captured by the Nazis. Throughout the rest of the movie. Like, she doesn't really do that much.
It's a shame. She'd be a great character. Give her own spin-off. There you go.
Yeah. But I know those Jones boys, they really love Marion, so I'm like, ooh, never mention that to them. But it always struck me that way. It's like, I think that was a little bit of just like, lip service to the concept of a strong, independent woman and whatnot. But
it's a shame.
Yeah.
But Niall, before we go, we need the riddle.
That's right, fellas. Like this season, in coordination with the Riddler, been in this movie, we pose a riddle to the guests to see if you can crack this one. So,
I suck at these, by the way.
Don't worry.
Let's hear it.
Me too, and I don't know them. He keeps them secret from me.
Oh, good.
I always
So
feel
you're
really
dark
bad
with
too
us.
because I think it was we were recording with someone the other day, and they were like, "Do you write these, Niall?" And I'm like, "I'm nowhere near intelligent enough to write any form of riddle." It's like if John were posing these riddles, I'd be doing like worse than them. Like I would be like, I have no clue around the riddle. But thankfully, I was in the position to be the one asking them. So, but yeah, the riddle this week is riddle me this: why is the letter A like a honeysuckle?
A like a honeysuckle. I don't know enough about honeysuckles to properly puzzle this one out.
Yeah, is that one clue you can give us now? Do we need to know about honeysuckles?
No.
No.
You could even just say,
No.
I don't know that could be giving it away, but like you could even just have honey. Why is the letter A like honey?
Okay.
We'll mull it over all week and get back on Friday with the answer.
Okay.
But in the meantime, we will head off into the dark, dark night. Would you both like to tell our listeners where they can find you online? Let's go. Who should go first? Doug, you go first.
Sure thing. I'm a host of a little podcast called Rocky Minute, where we dissect the Rocky movies 1 minute at a time, much like these fellows do here with the Batman series. So we're slugging our way through Rocky 3. The recordings are, in this hard time of COVID-19 and whatnot. It's been a challenge to get things going, but we're sludging through.
Looking forward to it, very much so. And Father David?
You can find me on Twitter at Father Mowry. That's FRMOWRY. And you can also go to my website, fatherdavidmowry.com, where you can find all of the guest appearances I've had on various Movies by Minutes podcasts. We mentioned Indiana Jones Minute. I was on with them talking about Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. So if you want to hear me vent about my frustrations of using historically inaccurate Franciscans in an Indiana Jones movie, I've got just the podcast episodes for you.
Hey. And I was going to say they're great. All the episodes are great, but those ones are especially good because the insights you can offer.
Oh, shucks.
It's true, though. It's true. So check all of those out, everybody, and come and speak to us on Facebook at the Bat-Minute Listeners Cave or Twitter at Bat-Minute, and come and subscribe to our Patreon because you're lovely and you want to help us, and then you also get bonus material. That's great, isn't it? And we will see you again on Wednesday for more Bat-Minute Forever.
Next time, this guy's a wrecking machine. Who's wrecking machines? The franchise's vehicular manslaughter reaches 2 for 2 as we bid another Batmobile adieu. But while Kilmer's car is killed and the cave crumbles into a chasm, which captain of catechisms will quake about his joy-gasm? Find out next time when we eat Bat Trivia and crap banter. Same Bat Pod, different Bat Minute.
Yo, Mickey, your voice sounds pretty familiar.
Shut up, Rock. Wah, wah, wah.
Ba-da